Yes, thank you again for having me. I remember last time I was on it, we had such a great time.
We had a great conversation. I remember asking you like about my own personal time management and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, can you just basically be my therapist right now in this fucking,
I remember that, yes.
in this episode? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about codependency, dating and sobriety. Yeah. Real quick, give us your credentials, all your educational stuff.
Yeah, so I got a master's in theology, currently with a bachelor's in social work. I have my CADC 2, right, which is Certified Alcohol Drug Counselor 2, which you go to schooling for. I have about 20,000 hours of clinical work put in under my belt.
We were going to start with stories about dating before we were sober or when the other person was drinking or using or whatever.
Right.
And I have two ridiculous ones. One of them is kind of funny. One of them is actually really embarrassing. Neither of which I've told on the show. So, I mean, I guess they're technically would both be embarrassing to the average person, but for me, one of them's funny. So, living in LA, I was living in Venice, I was 28, and I had broken up with this boyfriend that I really loved. He had broken up with me because of my coke problem. It was like out of control, but we were living across the street from each other in Venice, and the goal was that I was going to like get my act together and we could get back together. And he was kind of like wanting to put the effort in on that, and we would still see each other and hang out and whatever. And I, of course, did not get my act together or do anything I said I was supposed to do or whatever. And at some point, he kind of figured that out, and it became more like we're not seeing each other anymore. And I freaked out because this is one of like the lowest times in my life too, in terms of my belief about my ability to do anything. I was teaching spin at the Beverly Hills Country Club, and I was good, but I was a train wreck with cocaine use. And so every 3 weeks I would miss a class because I was too fucking hungover to go. And they were only leaving me on because the guys that took my classes like really liked me and they were kind of pulling for me, but things were like not good. I didn't even have a car anymore, and not having a car in LA is very, very difficult. And not only did I not have a car, it had all the head gaskets blow at once, and it was on the street in Venice, and there's like really strict street parking, and it was dead. So once every like 3 days, me and the guy, the ex, would push it to the other side of the street to avoid street parking. And so he would have to come help his dumb shit ex-girlfriend. We would push it to the other side, and it was just like a nightmare, just like very, very, very unmanageable living. And I started thinking that the only way out for me was going to be to like marry a rich guy. That was the only way out for me. And this is probably the only time in my entire life that I've ever really thought that. And I've never been able to actively act on that, right? Like my whole life, I have had the opportunity to date very wealthy men, but if I didn't like them, I didn't like them, right? And like I have girlfriends that are a lot better at that than I am. You know, they're like, you know what I mean? They like make it work. Yeah. I'm like, I can't. You know what I mean? I can't. Yeah. I'll date a broke ass, I guess. Yeah. You know. Fuck, dude. One time, this is dumb. In La Jolla, I was training this very wealthy woman in La Jolla. She set me up on a date with one of the last like princes from what was Persia. And now he lived in La Jolla, and that was like his line. And he wasn't a prince anymore, but they were like a royalty lineage, very wealthy. And she set me up on a date with this guy. And I had started dating the idiot that got me into heroin, and I got arrested with all the time, and when I'm homeless, you know, 2 felony DUIs, no job, no money. I don't even think I had a fucking checking account. I had just started dating him, no car. And I went out on a date with this Persian prince. And the whole time I was like, I like the other guy better. Yeah. And I ended up going out with him. Yeah. I picked Evan. This is when I dated Evan. Those of you guys that know the story, I had met Evan and I'd been hooking up with him for a little while. And I was like, I think I'm going to choose him.
Turn down a prince.
Change the course of my life. Yes. So anyways, I've always been the girl that's going to go for, I guess, for, you know, for better or for worse, who I really like, which for a long time was obviously just other alcoholics and drug addicts. But so I started thinking desperately, I need to just like marry a guy. Like I just need to get some stability here. And I was not interested in quitting doing drugs or drinking. I didn't think I was an alcoholic or anything. I was like, I just need money, and then I can like live how I want to live. And I can keep things clean and neat and stuff if I have money. You know how that is. Like if outside things come in, then I'll be able to maintain something that looks like a life. And the guys at the Beverly Hills Country Club really loved me. And they were this amazing group of men. It's still one of the best jobs I ever had in my life. They were in their like mid 50s, mid 60s, and they were doctors and lawyers and agents, and they were really good guys. They were all married, they were all family men, and none of them ever hit on me. None of them were ever inappropriate with me. And it sounded so weird to people because I taught for them from when I was 26 to 28. So I am this young girl, and I'm teaching their spin classes. But they were never, and they did a lot for me. Like when I lost my car, they like took turns letting me borrow their extra vehicles for a while. And so I was driving like nice cars. Like one of them let me borrow an Escalade. One of them let me borrow the Honda you got to plug in. I don't even think they do them anymore. But for a while there was going to be like energy that you, like a plug-in one versus natural gas. That they let me borrow cars. And I remember everybody around me at the time basically thought I was just being like a hooker, but I wasn't. They just like really loved me. And in retrospect, I think maybe I don't know, maybe they knew I was struggling. I don't know, but they were very cool to me, and they were trying to set me up with their sons. Like they definitely saw me as younger than them, you know? And they set me up with one of the guys said, "What's your like age limit on dating?" And I was like, "I don't think I have one. Why?" And he was like, "Well, you do. You're not going to age 70. So what's your age limit?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess I don't know." And he said, "Is 50 too old?" And I said, "I don't think so." And now I'm 28. And I'm like, "I don't think so. Maybe not." You know, guy never been married, didn't have kids. And so he's like, "All right, we have a friend that I think could work for you." And he lived in the Pacific Palisades, which is a really nice area. Obviously, recently everybody's heard about it. But he lived in a mansion in Pacific Palisades. And they set me up with this guy. And he was good looking, 50-year-old dude. The only thing about it was, though, I could tell when he showed up, he had dyed his hair brown with that, like, just for men. And I'm like, but I like gray hair. And in the back of my mind, I was like, if this goes anywhere, he needs to let this grow out. But anyways, so we go out on a date, and I have nothing. No car. I just like ran out of the room. He pulled up. I didn't even let him come to the door. I just told him, text me when you're on Abbot Kinney. And he did. And I like ran out to the street. And we go to dinner, and I was so fucked up. I was so sick in my head, and I just was really bored. And he was probably a very interesting guy. And he was like ripped, you know, now it's so weird to me to be like for a 50-year-old, because now that doesn't seem old, right? At all. It's not that old, but like, you know, he was in good shape, whatever. And he was this great guy, and he had a lot of money, and I could tell. And we're eating, and I'm getting like shot after shot after shot. I didn't have any cocaine with me, so I'm just drinking as much as I can. And I have like, I don't know, 6 shots of Casadores. And at some point he said something like, you know, it's a lot. Are you good? Basically. And I was like, oh yeah, I do this all the time. But he was like, cool. He wasn't looking down on me. I think he was just like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? He had no idea I'm like this raging alcoholic. He thinks I'm just like a partying 28-year-old. So we end up going back to his house. I need more alcohol. Like as drunk as I was, I still wasn't drunk enough to like make this moment interesting for me.
Because you're balancing it out with the Coke, right?
No, I didn't have any Coke.
Oh, so you're just straight drunk.
I'm just drunk. Yes, just drunk. And I didn't have enough. There wasn't enough substances in the world, I thought, to make this guy interesting. But the reality was there wasn't enough in the world to make my life interesting. Right? It wasn't him. It was like me. I don't even know what he was talking about. He probably had a cool job. He lived in the Palisades. You know what I mean? He's probably like a fucking agent at ICM.
Yeah, what were you guys talking about? What were you guys talking about? Do you remember?
I don't know. I don't know. You know, I mean, I would have been able to have a good conversation with him. I am intelligent, you know, and I could seem definitely not like a fucking idiot if I had to in a setting like that. I'm sure we were talking about, like, I'm sure I learned what he did do that night, and I've just forgotten. I would have talked about teaching spin, you know, like just small talk that you'd have on a first date. And we go back to his house. And I remember thinking, like, I'm not drunk enough. And he went to the bathroom or something, and there was a bottle of wine on the counter. And I just walked it in the door. I start going through his stuff looking for a wine opener. I'm opening all the drawers. Never been in this house before in my life. I find a wine opener thing, and I cut the top off, and I'm like, and I open it, and I get a glass, and I'm like pouring myself a giant glass of wine. I'm drinking wine, and he comes around the corner with his little dog, and he has a little white dog, like a tiny one with like curly hair, like a poodle or something, and it runs up to me, and I was like, "Oh, dog!" And I'm like petting the dog, and then all of a sudden I realized the dog's got pink hair. And I'm like, and I said, "Oh, she got pink hair? Did you dye her hair?" And he's like, "What? No." And I'm like, "Oh, she's got pink hair." And he's like, "Oh my God, you're bleeding." I was gushing blood from my hand. When I had opened the bottle of wine, I had like sliced my hand open and didn't notice, just drinking, blood dripping down my arm onto his floor. And he comes back from the bathroom. There's blood everywhere. And his dog is now like covered in blood from me. He's never met me in my life. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry." And he's like, "Oh my, what happened in here?" And I was like, "I don't know." And I was bleeding on this dog. And so finally, obviously, like, I was like, "I'm sorry." And I tried to, I like bandaged up my hand or whatever. And he was trying to like clean off his dog who's covered with this random woman's blood. We don't know each other. And so I remember he kind of like rinsed off the dog. And I said, "I should probably go home." And he was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll drive you home." And he was super nice about it. And he brought me home. And he like called me again after that. He like called me if like he was like going to go out with me again. And I remember thinking, I don't think this is a good idea. But isn't that fucking stupid? I bled all over this fucking dog. And I was like, "Oh, why your dog got pink hair?" It's just my blood and this white dog's hair. So that's the one that's a little funny.
That is funny.
And then there's one that's really embarrassing. I guess that's embarrassing. But this one is just cringy. The guy that I loved, that I was on the date with that 50-year-old dude in the first place because I liked the other guy and we weren't seeing each other. Mm-hmm. I was supposed to not be doing cocaine, and his like best girlfriend from growing up was in town, and they were really close. And he was a bit older than me. He was like 39 and I was, 28 at this time. And his friend was in town, and it was someone that he really respected. He had done well. He'd gone to a really good college. He'd lived in Paris for a long time. He had been a very successful person like prior to meeting me. And he wanted me to meet his friend. And she had gone to like NYU or something. I think she was a fucking lawyer. Like she was like a real lady. And then there's me. And he's like, "I need you to meet my friend." I'm like, "Got it." So we go to dinner, and this is when we're not really together, and I'm desperately trying to get him back. Like, I gotta be good.
So this is an ex-boyfriend at the time.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. We're not really together, but it was the year that he was living across the street from me, and we were like kind of trying to work it out. I had a bunch of opportunities to show like I can be a person in the world and I can bring goodness to your life, not chaos.
So is he not a drug addict, this guy?
No, he kind of was too, but not like me. So, he drank a lot. Okay. I actually think he's sober now, but he definitely had his life together. Okay. Like he paid the whole rent at our place. When he moved out, he moved into a nice place, and I was just living like so. Basically, he definitely had his life more together than I did. I think he eventually got sober. Actually, I like looked him up on Facebook once, and it seemed like maybe he'd gotten sober later in life. Because you would have to be kind of an alcoholic to date me for 2 years. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not super together. Yeah,
something's wrong.
But he was more together than me.
Yeah.
You're like, for my behavior to be like, fine. Like you drink a lot. My dad wouldn't have gone out with someone like me. You know what I mean? So it's like, so he was kind of fucked up, but certainly more stable than I was. He paid all the bills. His car didn't blow up. Mine did, like stuff like that. So I was supposed to go and be like, I can meet your friend, And so we go, and I was doing cocaine in the bathroom, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm sure they knew. And at one point,
and how much coke are you doing at this point at that time? You carry like an 8-ball on you? Like, what do you carry on you?
No, God, no. I could never afford that. Maybe, no. I've never, no. Like maybe I would buy a gram at a time, 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week. Yeah. So, and I would do the whole gram that night. So like not a ton. I had done more if I could, but I never had enough money. So I'm back and forth to the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. And at some point he goes outside to like smoke a cigarette or something. And she and I start talking, and like this, I launch into this like coke induced thing where I think we're connecting about men. And like, I'm telling her all this stuff. And he even comes back at one point and I tell him to go back outside because we're having like such an important conversation. And when I look back, she must have been horrified by me. He must have been horrified by me. And I'm sure, you know how like when you and your friends talk shit about an ex and like how done they were, I know
that ex?
wherever they are. Yes, for sure. If it comes up, I'm sure she's like, you remember that one crazy girl? And he's like, no, don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. Like his kids are there now. And she's like, that girl was, and I'm sure he's like, you know what? I don't even want to talk about her. Like I'm that person. Yeah. And it's so embarrassing.
And real quick on that point too, I always think, I don't know if you've ever thought this. Someone asked me this yesterday. They go, do you ever wonder if your exes that probably are annoyed from you, frustrated, or maybe even hate you, you know what I mean? Because how we were, do they ever look at that? Yeah. Do they ever look at our social media now that we're thriving and we're talking about them? They're like, look at them.
So, dude, him in particular, I have wondered. So the guy that I did all my using with, Evan, the guy my audience knows, him, I've wondered because I talk about him and our escapades. And I'm really surprised I haven't heard from him yet if he has seen anything. But this one is, I'm sure, like, whoa, what the fuck? I'm sure he's like, oh, fuck you. Now you have 10.5 years. Fucking great. Like he gave me all of the love and all of the time and I just couldn't make it work, you know? And I have wondered also him, I know that he would have seen pictures of Skylar and for sure been like, oh, fuck you. You married this young ass, good looking guy who summered in Nantucket. After all your bullshit, you landed with this guy. I guarantee you he looks at, because he also had this theory that like, I don't know. He thought that all of my guy friends were really good looking, like my guy friends from Peachtree City when they would come visit. And they kind of were, but he saw me as this like, party girl, but in an elevated way, not the way I really was. I was like a homeless person party girl. He saw me as like Lindsay Lohan. And maybe that's just how he had to accept it in his mind. But he saw me as like getting away with everything and like being so pretty I could get out of things. And I've got these good looking douchebag friends that are like studs from high school. And like I would love for that to have been the case, but that was not the case. I never got out of anything for being cute. You know what I mean? Like, so he would have seen Skylar later and been like, sure, because Skylar looks like kind of an Abercrombie model. And I'm sure, especially if he looks at his old Facebook, which is the only thing left, I'm sure he'd be like, right, after all that. Because I've wondered what he thinks too. Yeah, I have wondered that before. So you have too? You've thought about that?
Well, yeah, because, I am, me, I'm so vulnerable, but I share everything. But obviously there's a silver lining of like, I was the wrong one. Yeah. But sometimes you don't catch that when I'm saying. So when you hear these crazy stories, I'm always like, man, like, because for me, I always say this, nobody has anything bad to say about me, but my exes. Those are the ones I'll tell you. They'll be like, man, fuck that guy. So I wonder, especially the bigger the platform gets, I'm like, I wonder if they're like, dude, don't fucking talk about me, or how dare you, or, you're full of shit.
I wonder about that too. Evan, like that's not his name. So I've from the rip covered that because I think he would maybe want money.
Yeah, I've never used names. I've never used names at all. That's one good thing. But, again, they know who I'm talking about. Them, not people.
They know who you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. And then that guy too, the one that I talk about that from Venice. Yeah. I started seeing a friend of his that year and he always suspected that. And I always lied about it and to the end. And I lied to the friend too. The friend was like, are y'all still talking? And I was like, no. And they weren't close enough that it came up. And since then, I've shared about, I went to Hawaii with that guy. And I told my ex who lived across the street that I had gone to like Agora Hills with my friend Gumpy. Yeah, but I went to Hawaii with this other guy.
Did you make amends to any of them or try to?
No.
Okay.
Now they definitely know that though. If they've listened to anything, they would know that piece because I've shared stories about the friend because I ended up like totally falling in love with that guy, the friend. And I got when I got a DUI It's because I was like really mad at, I was upset at him and like driving home drunk as shit. And if anybody, and I've told that story on TikTok, and the guy from Venice definitely would have figured out by now that I mean his buddy.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure that has come up now. So he's probably mad about that because actually, when we first split up, I actually even saw him again. Like, when we broke up back then, I ended up leaving LA, you know, after the night that I met his friend and all that stuff. Like, clearly I wasn't going to be able to get sober. That's when I moved to San Diego and he moved to Paris. He moved back to Paris. And I was like, why are you moving back to Paris? And he was like, I have to leave the country or we're going to keep talking. And I was like, that seems extreme. You can't just move to Phoenix? And he was like, no, I have to go to France to get away from you. And I was like, fuck. So he moved to France and like a year later came back, and I had started seeing the guy I ended up doing heroin with, Evan. I'd started seeing him a little bit, and I actually saw him when he came back from France. Like, we got together and we had a drink, and it was like cool. But then since then, he's like blocked me on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he may have heard me now admit openly.
I'm sure
I was seeing his friend.
I'm sure.
Which he asked me about.
Yeah.
Back
and
then.
I'm sure, you know, I mean, now with social media, you know, everybody's curious about what their exes are probably doing.
Of course.
You know,
I look up all of them.
Yeah, I want to see if they're doing worse, maybe because they're mad at us, or hopefully they're doing better. We didn't mess them up that much. Just curiosity.
Yeah.
And, you know, our stuff is so loud.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. No, I always look at what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to know and then one I'm really close with. So I was with this guy for a long time in LA in my early 20s, and we're still very good friends. I actually was going to invite him to my wedding. So one of them I'm really close with, and then the other two, you know, whatever. But yeah, I still look him up. And if they've ever looked me up, then yeah, they would have seen like all of this stuff. Yeah. So, but I've thought about that before too, you know? Yeah. And I'm sure he has heard since then that I have now very cavalierly admitted I was talking to that guy. And that sucks because what I would want to tell him is that I lied to both of them. I don't want him to blame his friend. Mm-hmm. The friend asked. He was like, I feel kind of weird about this. And they weren't that close. They weren't like homeboy. Right. You know what I mean? They just kind of knew each other casually in the scene in Venice. They knew each other. And he asked me at one point, hey, I feel kind of weird about this. I thought you guys were kind of working it out. And I was like, no, we're not. I lied to both of them. But in terms of the amends thing, that's interesting. I don't think that, I guess I could ask Rachel. I think that would fall under the category of doing more harm again.
Yeah.
Because what we don't do is tell people things they don't already know. Yeah. So I certainly wouldn't reach out and say, I was seeing that other guy. I guess I could reach out and say, sorry, I was so difficult. Mm-hmm. I guess I could say that. Yeah. Maybe, but like, I don't know. Maybe it's different because he was also drank a lot too. It's not like, I don't know. What do you think? Do you owe amends to your exes?
I mean, I reached out to all my exes. So for me, I always tell people, like, I think my amends is mainly exes. Those are the ones I always hurt the most. And so one of them that I've reached out to has never responded to me. So what I did was, out of respect, I would only reach out every day on my birthday, my sober birthday. I would try. Okay. You know, and then nothing, and blocked me. Okay. So that one hurts, right? Because I would really love to make amends in person with that one. But I'm not going to force it. I'm blocked. So, I mean, if I run into them, I'll try. And then the other one has a boyfriend. And so I don't want to get in the way of that, make it seem like I'm trying to get, you know, I know how guys are. I know how guys are. So I don't try to reach out to that person at all. If they were to reach out to me, I would respond. Or if I run into them in person, maybe I would be like, hey, but I haven't run into them in 7 years in person. Another one I tried to, and they just said, fuck you. I said, okay. Another one I did make amends to, made her right. And then we hooked up again, and then I owe her another amends.
Oh no.
That's a whole that was a whole nother thing that happened. And then another one in recovery has every right to be mad at me, blocked me, has me blocked for the past 3 years. So I do try to make amends, but because of, I'm the type of person where, like, I do fall in love quickly, and I do mean everything I say, but I learned that it was my ADHD. You know what I mean? It was, I get excited. I really do. And then I lose interest. And then sometimes I'm like, damn, I probably shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have promised that. I didn't mean to. I don't mean to hurt you, but it doesn't matter. I hurt you.
Wait, is that a thing? ADHD makes you feel like you like someone sooner?
Yeah, because the novelty, the newness, right? So it's not that you love them, it's that it's
Oh.
new. But
Oh,
when you're not aware of
interesting.
what's happening because they don't teach you that, then it's like, yeah, I think
Right.
this is the one. Like I'm so excited. I want you to meet my friends, meet my
Oh,
family, let's go on vacation. And then 3 months go by and you're like, what's happening right now? And then you're like, oh no, why don't I
okay.
like them the same? And then you're like, crap. And then I feel bad because I said, I love
Yeah.
you, I this, but I meant it. But to them, I'm sure they think I lied to them,
Yeah.
manipulated, which I get. So I still hurt them and I don't know how to break up because I was always the one that was broken up with, cheated on, and used. So then it probably doesn't come out the best way, but I have to do it. And then I'm sure they
Yeah.
see me online, happy, purpose, and then I have a new girlfriend. And then I know it probably looks bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Totally.
yeah.
Totally. Well, at least you have an awareness of that. You know, the other thing I think about is Skylar's ex. I think about her a lot
Mm-hmm.
because he was with someone before I met him. She was in med school and she obviously really loved him. And he relapsed while they were together and he robbed her fucking blind. Like it was so
Like
bad. And I
financially.
know him. Yes, yes, yes. Um, stuff, her student loan. He like used her whole student
Mm-hmm.
loan. She ended up losing her plate.
Wow.
Bad, bad, bad. And after they broke up, he was homeless, stuck in Mexico, just like with me recently. She helped him get out of Mexico after he had stolen from her. She got into a rehab. And then he broke up with her anyway. And now I know it's because in retrospect he thought she was not the right person for him and she wasn't, you know, based on what I
Mm-hmm.
now know because I know him so well. We've been together 8
Mm-hmm.
years and he's told me a little bit about it. It wasn't the right person for him. He broke up with her anyways, but of course I think about her and I'm like she must have been so fucking mad
Yeah.
after she did all that. And like when she went home with him once, his mom gave her like a family ring and I'm sure she thought they were going to get married. And after all this, when he and I'd been together like I don't know 7 or 8 months, I figured out her name because I didn't even know her name, right? But I'm a girl
Mm-hmm.
and I fucking figured it
Yeah.
out. And because he said something about her being in med school, and I was like, "Excuse me, what? What? You dated somebody in med school?" And then I'm like, feeling all insecure.
Right.
I'm like,
That's who I'm
if
competing
nothing
with.
else, yeah, yeah. I'm usually the smart one. Like I'll be cute too, but like I'm usually smarter than someone's ex. Maybe I'm not. So, anyways, I find out her fucking name, and I Google her, and after like I don't know, recently from when I Googled her, she had posted a GoFundMe and it was public. And she was asking for money to go to a mental health facility because she had had a nervous breakdown after what
Yeah.
happened, quit med school, and like her whole life fell apart. And in the writing of the GoFundMe, she was like, compounded by a man I loved who robbed me and betrayed me for his opiate addiction, blah, 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 blah. This was in her GoFundMe. And I knew she meant him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no. And I think about her a lot because if she looks him up, he's clearly married now
Mm-hmm.
and ended up, he'd never even had a real job or anything. Now he's like in construction. He ended up getting promoted to be like a superintendent somewhere. I mean, he lost that job and he relapsed, but he's back on that track
Mm-hmm.
again, right? He's got a year and a half. Like he turned into this amazing man.
Mm-hmm.
Like he supports me everything I do. Like
Mm-hmm.
he did end up making good money. He did all the things. Not with her though.
Yeah.
I actually think about her too.
And
I would be so mad.
something I want to talk on that too, right? It's like the sad truth is sometimes the people that we hurt, we need to hurt to learn from to be better for the next person. And I know that sucks, right? Because their story is seeing us happy with someone else, which sucks, right? Especially when people like us really fuck over people, right? Again, we're not
Yeah.
bad people. It's addiction. So we do bad
Right.
things. But
Right.
that's why, like, for me, I always tell people, remember, I don't care how good of a person you are, it never guarantees someone's going to stay with you. So I do that for
Right.
myself because I need to remember, like, because I was the person that I thought if I love you perfectly, buy you everything, do something, be the best, like it guarantees you'll never leave me or never cheat on me. And that's never been true. So even in my
Right.
relationship now, again, it can sound kind of fucked up, but it's like I understand that you said you'll never cheat on me and you want to be with me forever, but I don't take that to heart, not in a negative way, but I protect myself. So I always make sure I'm taking care of me. So if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, because there's 40 more years of life, let's just say, and you do leave me for whatever reason, I don't get resentful that I did X, Y, and
Right.
Z for you, right? And that's the sad truth, though, because when my girl spent $60,000 on me to go backpacking, she said, I told her without even asking, I already knew. I'm like, are you afraid that after this trip saves my
Yeah. What
life
if you move back and then you break
and I'm
up
going to
with her
break
the
up
day
with
y'all get
you and
back?
I'm going to be with some other chick? And then it's like, you just spent $60,000 on me and had my back, like had my
Yeah.
back. Look what you did for me. You saved my life. I'm like, thank you for saving my life. I don't want to be with you no more. I'm in love with this person now, but thank you. And now watch my journey grow and be beautiful. And I share at churches and AA meetings. My life is better. I went backpacking. I got the new woman of my dream. I said it to her.
What did she
She says, oh,
say?
fuck yeah. And I said, look, I'm
Yeah.
telling you right now, that's not, I totally understand you feeling like that. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm going to let you know that right now. That's not in my mind. But that's why I said I'm uncomfortable with receiving this gift because I would feel like that too.
Sure. Yeah. Although at the very least, and hopefully, or not even at the
Yeah.
very least, but the other side of that is she also got to go backpacking for 6
Yeah.
months and was in a place to help someone who was struggling.
Right.
That would be hard to get to right
Of
away.
course.
You know what I mean? But like in
Yeah.
retrospect, she could, look at that
Yeah.
because honestly, I felt that way a little bit with the guy, Evan, that I did all the using with.
Mhm.
After he left, my mom hooked him up with, he was owed a bunch of money from the Marine Corps. He didn't know that. They cut him loose with a traumatic brain injury. And that was it. Goodbye. And they owed him a lot of money. He was supposed to have been declared disabled and got therapy and medication and VA benefits. He didn't know any of that until he met my angel of a mother, who's a master's degree in social work. And then when we start getting all fucked up together, she sat down with him and he revealed to her, he had like never revealed this, that he had been sexually assaulted by like 12. And it changed his life forever.
Yeah.
And he had never told anyone. And my mom was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This person needs so much help. She got him hooked in with the VA and got him a lot of money, monthly benefits for life, plus back pay.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And he left. And I was supposed to move out to where he was. And that was going to be our life. I end up not moving out there. I'm like, oh my God, what am I even thinking being with this guy? We should not be together. I end up not moving out there. And then I kept using for like another year by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like homeless and all this shit I blamed him for alone, using needles, all the things. And he is living where he moved to. And I saw he bought a car and now he was waiting for me to move out there. And finally, after months, he was like, if we're not together anymore, like you should just tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, maybe whatever. And then we were still kind of cool and his life was moving on. And I thought the same thing. I'm like, my mom got you all those benefits. And now, I felt the same way even with him. But now in retrospect, I'm so glad I ended up with him and all that bullshit happened. I'm glad I picked him over the prince, even though that sounds insane, because it got me to this place where, like, here you and I are having this conversation, sharing about addiction. I don't know that I would have been this type of person without this level of adversity in my life. I know I wouldn't.
Or maybe you'd have been dead with that much money. Oh, that much freedom.
Totally. Yeah. Well, that's what I think with the Pacific Palisades guy. When I was younger, because by the time I met the Prince guy, I wasn't really doing that much coke anymore, only because I didn't have any.
Yeah.
Right. I was in San Diego. I didn't know anyone. The Palisades guy, when I was 28, living in LA.
Yeah.
Well, probably he would have sent me to promises in Malibu eventually, but I wouldn't have stopped. You know what I mean? Like I've actually worked that whole thing, but for sure. Yeah, for sure. So anyways, it's just, it's interesting. And that's an interesting question because I do think about the ex thing all the time. I also wanted to back up and say that in my husband's defense, he told me stuff that she was not well either.
Yeah. Well, they can't be.
So I don't want to paint. They can't be. She was with him for 3 years, living with him when he was falling apart. No way. So she also had a lot of problems, and she said some heinous shit to him that he has. So I don't want to leave it as my husband just like fucked over this poor innocent med student. Like, that's not what happened.
Right. And again, I want to again also say something because I agree with you. Remember, at the end of the day, if you're dating someone like us,
Yeah.
you're fucked up too. So that's why I always
While
tell
we're in
people
our
when they get
active
mad.
addiction, while we're active.
Yeah. And a lot of times too, I'll be like, hey, I can look at people. They complain. I'm like, that's messed up. They did that to you. But then you hear the other side of the story. I'm like, well, hold on. You did what?
Yes, exactly.
You didn't tell me that.
Right.
And then it's like, well, what do you expect? You're dating an active addiction.
Right.
You're doing that. Obviously, you're sick too. Codependency, insecurities, low self-esteem. So yeah, you're going to get what you choose. Things come with
And
it.
actually, that's a very good segue into the codependency, because something that I finally admitted out loud. I always knew, and people that were close to me, I told this to, but I'll be so honest. There was a part of me that when I met Skylar, you know, he's 7 years younger than me. And my age has always been a really weird thing for me. I think maybe because I lived in LA for a long time. And so him being 29 and me being almost 37 when we met, I felt so insecure about my age. And he was from this really wealthy family. Like, I'm not. He's very good looking. And I just felt so insecure. Like, why on earth would this guy be with me? I don't know. And so in the beginning and through a lot of it, when he would relapse, there was a part of me that felt like this is why he's with me, because I'm only good enough for him if he is coming back from a relapse. Like, my only value is that I am the sober, stable force in his life.
Right.
I don't have value as just like a woman in his life. I'm only valuable because he needs me, because he keeps relapsing. And
did you subconsciously like that though?
Well, that's what I mean.
Because in that,
well, yeah, that's what I mean. And not even subconscious, conscious. Up here, I knew. I was like, I really, like
you kind of go up in standard almost in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I
exactly.
am in standard now. Yeah.
Yes, that was my only value, was because he relapses. Otherwise, he's dating a 25-year-old rich girl. Also, do you know what I mean?
Right.
Who wants? Like, what? Who has a nice house, and her dad is going to buy them a house. My dad's not going to buy us a house. Like, what? Like, that was the codependency portion for us. Now, by the end, that is not how I felt. And I was like, fuck you. I'm not doing this anymore. But for a long time, there was definitely a part of me that felt like I only have value in his world because he's relapsing, and my only thing I do good is stay clean. I can do that. I fuck up everything else, but I'm really good at recovery now, And so I do want to talk about codependency. So what is codependency? How is that defined? What does that look like?
So I always say this: water, we're codependent on. Why? Because we need it to survive, to live. You'll die without it. That's what codependency is when you think you need someone to survive. So you're not loyal to it. It's not that you want it, it's that you need it. And that's why we get into a lot of terrible relationships, because you're choosing out of desperation, not out of love. And why are we like that? Because something about you don't feel like you're good enough unless you have somebody with you, right? And so usually you grow up with abandonment and neglect. And as a kid, you learn that some type of attention was good, felt right, right? So we confuse attention with affection. And that's what codependency is. And so it starts young, exercising that, right? And that's why we get stuck in these relationships and we can't leave, because I would rather be in a toxic relationship than be alone. Because when I'm alone, I have to face the fact that I'm not good enough. Right. But in this relationship, I have moments where I feel like I am good enough. Like you said, when they relapse, well, for some fucked up reason, I feel better about myself because I know how to, this I have more of. Yep, I got more sobriety. I feel good. Everything else I suck at, but this I feel really good at, right? So it's that constant, I need to fix you, do something for you, play this character for you. But that's why when we don't get our needs met or the honeymoon phase is over, we become crazy and we become narcissistic now. Because again, that's not how a relationship should be. It shouldn't be about helping you. It should be hanging out with you.
Right. And I also, too, as we got older, and now we've been together 8 years, and as he got older and we were together, I also started thinking, what I really don't want to take away from him, though, that as like a man, he can do whatever he wants. I don't want him to feel like he needs me. I don't want him to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I do say to him, he'll joke all the time about like how long he and Tank would last without me, which pugs are very delicate creatures. Tank, he'll
Yeah,
die if
yeah.
it's 80 degrees. Like, yeah,
Right.
like a rogue pack of squirrels could kill him. And so Skylar will joke that like me and Puggy would not get very far without you, blah, blah, blah. And he's not really kidding though. And I'll say to him, I'm like, and like sometimes I'll joke about it, but then sometimes I'll be like, by the way though, honey, you don't need me at all to be
Mm-hmm.
a journeyman carpenter and all of that. You don't actually. I want to stay here. But you don't actually need me. And I think he probably believes that he still does, but I want him to
Mm-hmm.
get to the point where he doesn't feel that way. But then here's the next question though. He does need me and I do need him in a way, because what's the difference between codependency and then like a supportive nurturing relation partnership where
Mm-hmm.
the two of you together can go further?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the difference, right? You don't need each other for that. You want each other for that. And what that means is, don't get me wrong. Yes, there's that type. We rely on each other, right? Relying isn't codependency. Relying, right, is a choice, because you can rely on anybody. If it's not you, then I can rely on a friend. Rely on a new partner if it's not you, right? That's the difference. Is it that you want it? Is it that you need it? And that's for all of us. We have to decide, right? Because some of us may think, oh no, I want it. Yeah, but the way you act is like you need it. So
Right.
that's the difference,
Okay.
right? Is that fine balance for all of us to figure out, right? So it's up to us. So that's the healthiness, right? It's that interdependence, as they call it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I have your back, you have my back, but at the end of the day, I'm not gonna. If you can't, I'm not gonna take it personal, and I'll figure out another
So
way.
what does a codependent relationship look like? Like what would be a sign if someone's listening and they're like, I might be codependent, but I'm not sure. Like what does that look like? How would they know?
I would say the first thing is something to look for is that you start to change your values and your morals for somebody else just to be liked by them. That's something to check out, right? Because you're changing who you are to fit a mold to be liked by someone. Two, you're ignoring the red flags because you're falling in love with the potential and not the facts. Another thing. Three, if you find yourself always looking for the one wherever you go and you tend to jump into relationships quickly, even though you know you should take it slow, it's another sign of codependency, right? Again, you're acting out of desperation and you're changing who you are to be liked. So I say those are big things to look for as you're before you're getting into one. And then when you're in one, if you find yourself putting your needs aside for that person consistently,
Yeah.
and then you get resentful because you're not getting your needs met, that's another sign that you're codependent, because a codependent person wouldn't do that. They would make sure their needs are taken care of first, then show up for their partner. And then if it's toxic and you know it's bad, and all your friends that you love that are good are telling you it's bad, but you don't
Yeah.
leave, it's another sign that you're probably codependent, because why can't you just leave when it's so bad?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the problem with being in a codependent relationship? Like, so what if it's like, okay, yeah, we're codependent. Oh, well, like what are the negative impacts on a person?
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to be a healthy relationship. So your mental health is going to be really bad. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be full of anxiety. You might make some really bad
Yeah.
decisions. There might be some domestic violence, cheating. I mean, if you're unhappy in a relationship, which is mandatory going to happen in codependency, but you don't want to leave the relationship, somebody's cheating on
Because
each
you get
other.
resentful because it's codependent. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and you know, and you make bad decisions when you're emotionally driven. Like I said, cheating, right? Fighting, arguing. And how is that healthy? And if you have kids, you're traumatizing your
Right.
kids.
Yeah.
And guess what? None of your friends are going to want to hang out with you. You know, when you're like, hey, want a double date? I'm like, no, thank
Right.
you. I know how you guys get in public, and I'm not for it.
Right.
So it's not conducive at all. And I see it all the time with people, and people will die in that depression because they don't want to leave.
Yeah. When I was with the guy Evan that I did all my using with, there were so many
Mm-hmm.
red flags, and I ignored them consciously for one reason I knew of was my stated reason. And then there was another reason that I think was more subconscious. The reason I said was because he was really good looking. He was hot as shit. And I knew that. Even my mom.
Yeah.
When I first met him to my mom, I was like, see what I'm saying? And she was like, yes, he is very good looking. Even my mother, I swear to God, I wouldn't have been a heroin addict if that guy hadn't been so fucking hot. I swear. He was so good looking. There was so many times I was going to break up with him, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go inside and have sex with him one more time, though. And then I would just stay. I did that. I remember we went on a camping trip to Ocotillo Wells, and he was horrible. He was chasing me around a tent, threw a bottle at me. Awful. And I was like, this is horrible. This is horrible. And on the way home, the guy that picked me up from the doghouse, actually, my very good friend who like saves me later, I'm riding home with him, not Evan. And I'm like, I got to get out of this relationship. And he was like, you do. This is horrible. I thought he was going to murder you last night. And I was like, I know. And then we get back to Evan's house where my car was. And my friend was like, all right, you ready? And I was like, I'm going to be right behind you. We were roommates. And he was like, okay. And I was like, I'm serious. I'll be home in like an hour. And he was like, right. And I never went home. Maybe like 3 days later, you know? And I was like, I'm just going to sleep with him one more time. And then I'm going to break up with him. And then I wouldn't. And so that was the reason that I said out loud was like, he's just so hot. And I'd tell people that. I'd be like, he's just so fucking hot. But I think in the back of my mind, the subconscious reason was he was, by all accounts, I don't want to say this. I don't know how to say this, not being rudely, because I don't ever want to like disparage him now. He had at that time in his life, had nothing going for him. Like I said, 2 felony DUIs that he hadn't ever paid anything or done the MAD classes. So like warrants, you know, no car, you know, no money ever. Like he was very much, he was not a guy, and he was like 29, 30. He wasn't 22. He was like not a guy that you would think, oh, I'm going to build a life with this person, you know? And I think it did make me feel better about myself. Like, you know what I mean? Because I was coming in as this person from like a really good family and a good background. At that time, I did, you know, I had a car and I had all the things. I was teaching these good jobs. It was like in a brief period of only drinking and not doing coke. And it did definitely make me feel better about myself. And I'm sure that's also why the Persian prince didn't seem attractive to me. The fuck am I going to offer this guy? You know what I mean? Right. Like, and I remember thinking that, like, my big thing was owning a home. I was like, I don't own a house. I have no value. Like, I'm not bringing a house to the table. And when I look back on that, I'm like, I was only 30. I don't know why I was so weird about that. I'm still weird about that though. But now I'm older. I should have a house, you know? But back then it's like, no one would have expected a single girl to have a house for you to date her. You know what I mean? I don't know why I thought that.
It's all subjective, right? Really, it's just society says you should this and that. And I think that's the thing, right? A lot of times we'll date people that co-sign us to do what we want to do.
That was
and we'll date people that we feel sometimes more superior to. That's why a lot of people date newcomers and sobriety, even when they have time, because you have, again, all you have is time, but every aspect about you sucks. But in the rooms, the newcomers will look at you like, oh my gosh, you have time. Yeah. Yes, I do. I know the book and this and that. So it's an easy dating pool. But the reality is that you're so insecure that you can't date somebody more superior. I'm a superior. You can't date someone more healthier than you because you're not healthy at all. So you go for who's unhealthy because it allows you to play that character. That's why for me, I did date someone outside of recovery. I wanted to challenge myself. Yeah,
I want to talk about that too. I'm glad you brought that up. I've got 2 more questions though. And the co-signing thing was huge for me because I was a gnarly drug addict when I went on the date with the prince and when I was dating Evan. But with one of them, I could smoke things off aluminum foil. Not the other one. It's like, what are you doing? Right, crackhead?
That's your hinge. That's your hinge bio. Will you let me smoke crack off of foil? Yes. Swipe right.
Yeah, exactly. With him, I could smoke cigarettes because I was also in a world where, you know, people didn't really smoke cigarettes anymore, right? And especially where I was teaching in Rancho Santa Fe and La Jolla, nobody smoked cigarettes. My clients didn't know I smoked cigarettes. And so I'm in this nice clothes. I still want to smoke cigarettes. That was actually kind of a big one. And he smoked inside the house. And I was like, fuck yeah. Yeah, smoke inside, you know, like this is where I want to be and eat pizza, you know, and I wasn't ready for like an up level of my life. I didn't want that. So that was big for me too, for sure. Like the co-signing of stuff. How do you become less codependent? Like if you recognize I do these things, how do you get away from that?
Yeah. So before I answer that, one wisdom drop for everybody listening: good looks don't raise kids. And then I'll move on from that. So yeah, so to start breaking codependency, right? Again, it's different for everyone, right? One, if you're trying to break it while you're in a relationship that you don't want to leave, that's going to be different than being single and wanting to
Right.
break your
Okay. Okay.
codependency. So let's say single. In my experience, what I did was I went celibate.
Okay.
I went celibate because I didn't want to even, I'm just going to date for fun. I'm not trying to fall in love. Like, no, I needed to go, why do I need to be in a relationship? What is sex to me? Like what happened? So by being celibate for 8 months, it allowed me to see the dialogue in my head. Oh, I got raped as a kid. So I want to have sex with women to prove that I wasn't raped by a guy. One thing. So that could be a sexual trauma thing. The other thing was sex meant love to me. If a girl has sex with me, then she loves me. That was my thing. So that's why I had to have it to feel loved, to feel good enough, to feel hot, to feel manly, right? So there's all these negative things attached to relationships with sex that made me obsessed about it. So I had to sit with those thoughts, identify where those thoughts are coming from, the narrative, who they came from, is it true, is it not true? And then the more time that I had not having sex and not dating, I was able to find peace and to find security within myself and to find joy without being in a relationship with anyone. So that's what I would recommend to people is read Codependent No More, pay attention to the dialogue, don't have sex, don't get relationships, figure out what's really going on in your head so you can become aware of it. Because if you're not aware of why you jump into relationships and do what you do, you'll keep on doing it. And then figure out what the trauma is, go see a therapist to work through that stuff. Right?
Melody
Go for
Beattie
it.
wrote Codependent No More, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like the Bible for codependency, I tell people. It's like the AA books,
Yeah.
the big
Okay.
book.
I've
Do
actually not read
Codependent
it.
No More.
I know
Oh,
who
read it.
of
It's
it and that she wrote it and stuff, but
yeah,
I haven't read it.
it's very powerful and it's hard. Don't get me wrong. The celibate thing it's not for everybody,
Well, but it
but
also makes sense though, because it's like, even if you say you're just having sex for fun, like that's not going to turn out to be true. You're going to end up wondering the next day, like,
no,
why haven't I heard from them? And boom, you're right outside of yourself
right?
again.
Yes. Hey, addicts, right? You know what? I know I got a heroin problem, so I'm just gonna, do it every now and then. No, just
Right.
stop. Now, with sex, you're gonna have to one day help, but have the same approach in
Right.
the beginning, right? Have the same approach in the beginning because it is something that you have to have in a
Right.
relationship. And so the hard thing that happens is this: when you're celibate trying to work on your codependency, life is funny. Life's gonna start making you very attractive all of a sudden. Life's gonna have people from your past be like, "Hey, remember me?" And you might have had a crush on them at one point. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they like me," So the test is, can you develop the strength now to keep your promise to yourself and say, "Hey, I'm celibate, not trying to get involved. I appreciate it though." That's where real strength happens. One is figuring out
Yeah.
within you, but real strength happens when you're approached. Can you walk away? Now, if you're good looking, you're cursed because good looks attract people to come up to you. If you're not that good looking, I'm not talking crap, but the truth is you won't get approached as much, right? Guys and girls are different. Guys are creeps. Guys will go up to girls all the time. Girls might not go up to a guy all the time unless they're hyper attractive. So depending on what's going to happen will dictate how fast you're able to develop
Right.
that strength of saying, I'm not trying to do that. So that's going to help too, right? Because then now you're like, cool, I'm able to actually say no and walk away, even when I wanted it, because I know I have a
Right. Okay.
problem. If you're in a relationship, it's tricky. How do you not, if you're in a codependent relationship, how do you work on it, right, while you're in it? So that's very tricky. For me, what I've seen have to work with people is one, usually they break up with the person at one
Okay.
point. That tends to happen. Not everybody, but that tends to happen because they realize I'm only with them because I thought I needed them. They're not really what I want. So that might happen. So what happens is you go to therapy individually, codependent no more, and figure out the same thing, why you're codependent. The therapist will help kind of bring out why you are so they can do the work with you. And that's individual for everyone. But in that work, just be aware you're going to be a different person,
Yeah.
which might mean you might not want to be with the person you're with. And that's something you're going to have to be okay with and not feel bad about. Because sometimes they feel so bad, they don't want to hurt them that they're, you know what, I know they're not the person for me anymore because I'm working through my codependency, but we have kids, we have history. I don't want to hurt them. I'm just going to stay in it.
You know what though? I think there's might be a space though for, you have kids, you don't want to move out, but you're still able to become a healthy person that can break some of those patterns, even within that same relationship, even if the other person is not participating, right? So even if the other person has still got their
Mm-hmm.
difficult, weird, maladaptive behaviors, I think if you have a kid and you really think it's better for me to stay, obviously not in the case of abuse, of course, but I think that if somebody really wants to, I think there could be a there could be a place for choosing to just come up with boundaries and behaviors that protect you as best you can within the relationship without leaving. Now, then it's up to the person to decide how much happiness am I sacrificing though in that case, right? And
Exactly.
can I live with that amount of sacrifice? Is it not that bad?
Yeah.
Does the person still really make me laugh even though I know they're a fucking idiot and I'm going to have to put up this boundary? Or is this just all awful and I'm going to be miserable? You know what I mean? Like a very good friend of mine was in a marriage that it wasn't abusive. The guy just wasn't great, but they had 3 kids. And she started going to therapy she started going to Bible study on her own and therapy on her own, marriage counseling on her own. And she made it work for another like 6 years after knowing she should have left. But she eventually did. And I really commended her for that. She was like, I want to make it work. You know, I've got these kids and I see what happened to you and my brother. And she's like, you guys got so fucked up. And I'm like, listen, she said that to me. We were sitting in line for a Starbucks. And I was, and I was like, why didn't you just leave? And she was like, I just keep thinking what happened to you and Danny. And I was like, oh, no. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And I told my mom that. And my mom was like, oh, I probably should have told my mom that. But I commended her for that. But in the end, it became too much of a sacrifice of her own happiness. She ultimately decided to move on. You know, so, but I think obviously only the person can decide is this workable for me?
And that's why I'm glad you shared that, right? Because sometimes people think what's right for a season, and then 6 years down the road, they go, never mind, don't do that. I learned my lesson the hard way. And that's why I always tell people, like, look at people's end goal of it. I like talking to people that are older to be like, and they'll tell you a lot, like, trust me, this is a decision I regretted. Don't do it. I thought it was right. I did it for this and that. And for a couple years, I thought I was doing the right thing, and I realized I was wrong. Now, again, everybody's different. That's why I always tell people, like, look, that's between you. Whatever decision you make is on you. I love what you said. What are you willing to live with?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come down to, right? Everybody's different. You know, you might be a month of it. You're like, I'm out.
Right.
Someone might be a year. I'm out. Someone might be forever and then be on their deathbed and be like, I hated it. I wish I didn't do that, but I can't go back. So it just depends. And sometimes, guess what? It does work out. The other person does change and everything. You see it all the time with people. So it's like, you just don't know.
Well, and actually that kind of leads me to my next question, which is the difference, and maybe there isn't one, the difference between codependency and support. Because like with Skylar, everything was so bad. It's so horrible. The worst behaved human I've ever seen in my life.
Is this when he relapsed with you?
At my expense. It was fucking horrible. And I finally kicked him out and he was gone. He was missing in Mexico. I didn't know where he was. My audience has heard the story. And I was mad at him. He'd stolen all of our fucking money. It was terrible. And then on this day in September, he called. I got a phone number from Mexico, call from Mexico. And I answered and it was him. And he wanted me to cash app him $50. And he was like, if you give me $50, I'm going to come back across. I need to get back across the border. The car ran out of gas. And I was not giving him money at that time. And for whatever reason, I just thought like, I could tell he was sick. I could tell he was dope sick. It was August. It was hot. It was September. It was hot. I said, if I send you $40, will you go to detox? Thinking I would never see him again. There's no way he was actually going to come back. And he said, yeah, I will. And I said, okay. And I cashed out him $40. And I was like, I'm never going to see, he's going to fucking die down there, you know? And then at like 6:00 at night, I got a phone call from a gas station up here. He had come back. And I went and got him. And I was not going to let him live here. We were not going to be together. I was going to get him into a detox, but that proved to be impossible with no insurance or money. He ended up just like kicking on the floor down here. And eventually, and he actually like stayed sober. Now he has a year and a half. After 2 months or a month or something, I finally said, okay, well, you don't have to keep sleeping on the floor. Why didn't you come back upstairs? Like, we'll slowly start to see if we want to still like be together. You know what I mean? And in my mind, I had never really separated from him, or in my heart, but intellectually I had. But like, I still felt married to him. Like, it didn't actually feel like we were, but I was beginning to reconcile it. And I was beginning to even think about dating. And what does that look like for me now? And do I need to get a roommate?
Because how long was he out? How long did he go out for?
A year and a half.
Who else? Yes,
And for
mom.
most of it, he was still here. So in the first few months, I didn't
Mhm.
know, and then I realized. And for a long time, he was still working and paying all the bills. And every week was just supposed to get clean and detox, and I'm rationing stuff. And then he went to a week detox and came out and used again. And then he went to another week detox. Like we went through that period for a long time where he was
Yeah,
using and
yeah,
lying and going to Mexico every day, but still going to work every day and fully supporting us. And so there was like this weird space where it was like, no, I actually can't kick him out. The cars are in his name. There was just a lot going on. And then finally I got to a place
yeah,
where I
yeah.
could kick him out. And the car was in my fucking name. And I was so sad, but he needed to go and he'd gotten fired, no money at all, and gone. So that was where we were. And then from that point, months had passed to the point where I didn't even know where he was. So that's why it was like really a thing to come back and work with. Now he is sober though. He's got 18 months. So
Mhm.
what is the difference? But that was a codependent move to send him that money. So what's the
Mhm.
difference? Or is there not one and that was codependent,
Yeah.
but maybe it panned out to be right? I don't know.
Mm. Yeah. So when it comes to people that you love, right? Let's say in your situation, right, your partner, because there's your partner, there's your kids, family, best friend, right? There's different emotional connections to these type of relationships that make it more difficult to practice this, right? Stranger, a lot easier to like not be codependent but be supportive. But when it comes to a loved one, what is that fine line? And I think right there, really, it's like it's just trying your best to
Yeah.
figure it out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because again, but I think that the key is make sure you're always taking care of you because it's not guaranteed what's going to happen with this person, right? Always make sure that you give wisely, right? Again, okay, I'm going to give you money this time, but you're going to pay attention. And if you see, okay, I know they use it for drugs. All right, you want money? I'll buy you groceries. Let's go to the store. I'll buy you, oh, you need clothes? Okay, how about I just go buy you the clothes? You know, it's about learning how to just give wisely as best as you can. And I think taking care of yourself at the same time is how you kind of find that fine balance. That's kind of like the best way. And just be honest with yourself because again, you can. I always say this: enabling your partner is slow motion suicide. You're killing your partner slowly. I know that sounds very harsh, but you are
Right.
doing
Yeah.
that. So try to find that fine line of finding better ways to give wisely. And everybody's different with how much they want to be able
Yeah.
to deal with. Like you said, when he's still living with you, like how long you're able to deal with that till you're like, all right, get
Yeah.
the fuck out.
Yeah.
So everyone's different. So kind of just figure it
Yeah.
out, you know?
And you know what? Maybe
That's the
the
best
difference
way.
too is what your beliefs are. I didn't think I gave him that money, not having the expectation that, well, he better be here in a couple hours to go to detox. That was not my
Yeah.
expectation. I sent him that money and I was like,
Right.
I'm literally probably never going to see him again.
Yeah. And that's you protecting your
But
energy.
also maybe that
Yeah.
was like what made it not codependent because it wasn't hinged on he shows
Yeah.
up and does what he says. It was hinged on my choice only. Like there was zero attachment
Yeah.
to his behavior. It was only based on my own
Mm-hmm.
behavior, right? My own thoughts.
Yeah. And I think that is a healthy way, right? There's no
Yeah.
expectation, right? Again, it's the narrative. It's the dialogue you're telling yourself. Okay, I'm going to give you the money, but in my brain, I'm like, I'm not expecting you. I'm not going to get hurt by
Right.
this, whatever. You did show up. Oh, I'm
Yes.
surprised. I'm
Yeah.
grateful, but I wasn't expecting. And that's how you practice giving, supporting by protecting your energy, right? I'm going to support you because I have no expectation with it. And because of that, I protect
Right.
myself
Yeah.
from it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's healthy.
Last thing, you started to bring this up. We were going to talk about, so my preference is to date someone in sobriety, and your
Mm-hmm.
preference is you don't really have one, right? You just currently aren't right. Okay.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done both.
So my
Yeah.
preference is to date someone that is sober, and my reasons why are, and I hear sometimes real negative reasons around this, which is like it's dangerous. They might want you to drink. Oh, you can have just one. It sounds like a fucking after school special. I have never in my life had a guy encourage me to drink more. You know what I mean? They'll be like, I think you've
Mm-hmm.
had too many.
Yeah.
Like never once has some guy been like, oh, come on, just have one.
Yeah.
That's never happened to me. So for me, it's not about the negative consequences of dating someone that's not sober. For me, it's about the
Mm-hmm.
positive consequences of dating someone that is doing step work. That is, we're going to meetings. Like we can be in the 12-step
Yeah.
community together. We can go to the beach days. You know, we go to a
Right.
meeting together and afterwards I
Yeah.
can be like, damn, that speaker was really good. And they can be like, yeah, they were, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
we can talk about the cool sides
Yeah.
of recovery, also in terms
Yeah.
of men, dating a man that is actively doing step work and 12-step stuff is great, because if they're doing all the things, they have a sponsor. There's another guy in their life that they'll
Mm-hmm.
call when if they're being a dick. The average guy doesn't,
Yeah.
or girl, you know, I guess. But like even
Yeah. Yeah.
Skyler was never really working a program that as for that long, and then now he is. And we got into an argument real early in his sobriety about he wanted to spend money on something really stupid, and I was like, bro, you just cost us like a lot of it. He went on a walk. He took Tank out for a walk, and he came back, and he had completely changed his mind
Mm-hmm.
because he had called his sponsor, and the guy was like, "You're a little out of line on this," and he was like, "Oh." So for me, it's great to have someone that is actively working on like spiritual principles. They have a guiding
Mm-hmm.
mentor in their life. I just prefer it. So it's not even about like, oh, I'm afraid to date someone that's not. It's just been my preference. That said, since I've been sober, I've not dated someone that isn't. So I guess I don't know. You know what I mean? So
Right.
what's your take on that? Dating someone sober or not?
Yeah. Again, everybody's going to be different, right? There's pros and cons to both. So I love what you said, right? When you're dating someone sober, yeah, you get they understand it emotionally. 12 steps. I mean, how cool is it when you're like, hey, I got to take this call to my sponsor, and they're like, dude,
Yeah.
go for it. People are not going to get that. Normies, they're like, dude, this is our time. That's disrespectful. Tell them to call you later. Like, what are you doing? Second thing, are you hugging women or guys and saying you love them? That's kind of weird. I thought that was our thing. People in recovery understand it. It's not like that. That's just the culture. Going to meetings together, having the sponsors that hey, go call your fucking sponsor.
Right.
You're being a dick. All right, and then oh, you're right. Da 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 da. It's so many benefits of it, right? When you date someone, because they get you on an emotional, spiritual level that if you're not an addict in recovery, they will never give that to you. That's a fact. So that's the pros of dating someone in recovery, right? A con might be, right? Hey, they could relapse and die on you. That's probably the scariest thing is the relapse. It's not guaranteed. I'm just being honest. Like that's the
For
scary
sure.
thing is the relapse, I would say is the biggest con with
Agreed.
it. Just because they're sober doesn't mean they're actually working a good program or they're a good person. There's a lot of baggage with it. They may not change a lot of things about them, right? They might come with a lot of problems. So there's that, right? I would say that's the only con about dating someone recovery, but it doesn't mean it's always going to happen. A lot of pros, more pros than cons. With the normie, from my experience, I didn't want to be the recovery guy no more. I got tired of being at everything, and I didn't want to talk recovery talk. So it's a break from that character to have somebody that doesn't talk recovery, doesn't have those problems. It's not all over the place. They're just stable and different types of stuff. So it's like a reset.
I get that.
It's refreshing, but also they challenge you in ways that people in recovery can't. And it helps you. And for me, it helped me grow in certain areas that I was just like, I felt so uncomfortable. I felt so much anxiety, but I was like, man, this is actually really
like
helping me. Just like seeing how healthy her friendships were. You know what I mean? Like her friends for 15 years, they hang out, they call each other.
You don't think people that are
they
sober
go back
have that? I have friends from when I was like 12.
There is a dynamics of it. Like we have a lot of stuff that they don't do, but there was things that people in recovery don't do. I kind of like that. Like people in recovery, man, we'll call you, answer the phone anytime. She doesn't have that. She's jealous of it. But I saw the level of respect and consistency long term that she would point out, like, hey, that's very disrespectful what those people in recovery doing to you. I'm like, what do you mean? No, it's not. It's like, I know that's normal there, but that's not right. And so she helped me see a lot of things that I couldn't see.
Like what? Like what did we do that she thought was disrespectful?
And not saying like us, right? Like just people like us, but I'm saying, again, there's certain people who aren't always healthy in recovery. So that's what I meant. She'd point out stuff like that, like, hey, the way they're talking to you is not respectful. I'm like, what do you mean? They're using you. No, they're not. They're just, it's like, dude, they are. And then I'd find out that they were using me. So it was just nice to have a different pair of eyes to help me in certain areas. But again, it just showed me things that I just didn't know were even a thing when it comes to healthy relationships, ways of being. She taught me boundaries so good. Like it's because of her, I can say no. So there's certain things that she was really good at because she's just not an addict that added to my life, just like I added stuff to her life about how to love people, how to not judge people, community. So that's why I say there's pros and cons to everything.
I'm sure there's pros and cons to both, The only
con dating someone that's a normie is you have to hope that they'll support your recovery, to understand it, because it could be triggering. Because for her, she was like, you just told that girl you love her.
Really
Again, it's a
though?
cute girl, attractive. Yeah, because for her, because again, everyone's different. She grew up with not
Okay.
love. She
I was
grew up in
gonna
a
say, I'm trying
traumatized
to think
home
if
of
like,
anger.
I don't know. I don't know if also I don't know if all normie if most normie people would care about that though, honestly. I'm gonna challenge you on that. Like I don't know. But I wouldn't know. I've never dated a non-sober guy. Maybe they would be weird about it. I guess I
Exactly.
don't know.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, 99% of the time people I work with, they
Oh, all
are not
right.
okay with it. You may think that because you may think that because you don't
Okay,
date
okay.
someone. But when there's emotion
Yeah.
involved and they go to a meeting with you, they went, I want to see the meeting
Okay.
with you. Hugs. I love you, Fausto. Oh my God. It's so good to see you. And they're like,
Okay. All
holy
right, guys
shit. Like,
listening,
I didn't know I was going
y'all listening, I want to hear about this. If you date a normie, are
to.
they
Yeah.
weird about us saying I love you to people of the opposite sex?
Yeah. And what I mean by that too is have them go to a
Yeah,
meeting
and I
with
mean it.
you. Because remember, one thing's hearing it, visually
Right.
see the hug,
Interesting.
visually hear the, good to see you, the eye contact, the
Yeah.
holding, right? And some of us are bigger huggers than
Right.
other
Yeah.
people. So again, it's hard because some people recover
Yeah.
not huggers. I'm a big
Yeah.
hugger and a lot of people love me. So I get a lot of attention. So mine's kind
That's
of recovery on
interesting.
steroids. So that's I'm on
Right.
stage. Foster, we love you. Can I get dinner with
Yeah.
you? I want to talk about me getting touched as a kid. And it's like a girl. And she's like, oh, you're going to talk to that girl? Like, you know,
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, my sex life is messed up. Can I talk to you about it? She's like, you're going to talk to her about
Yeah.
it?
I could see
So,
that. I could see that.
so I get, so I think with me, the difference, anyone listening, I have a very unique lifestyle in recovery, but not like everybody. So I always tell people I'm a hard person to date, even if
Yeah.
you're in recovery, because I get a lot of attention, and insecurities and jealousy should be a thing that pop up with my
Yeah.
level
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
attention. So maybe it doesn't
Yeah.
happen for
Yeah.
everybody, but I will say common thing you do see with people is if you're dating a normie, I think the only way it's going to work, I think, is if they're curious about
Hmm.
recovery. I want to know why
Okay.
you go to
Yeah.
meetings. I want to know why you have to go to meetings. I want to know why you have to pick up that phone for the
Okay.
sponsee. I want to know why you have, it looks, or we probably do, but it looks like you have more fun with people in
Yeah. It's because we
recovery and not
do.
normal
But yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Because we do.
But that
So
has to
that's a
be okay.
nut.
You know.
Yeah. And it's not that we love
Right.
them more
Yeah.
than you.
It's
It's
just a
again, it's
different
just,
thing.
again,
Yeah.
it's just, it's a different
Interesting.
thing. So
Well,
I think you have to
yeah,
educate the
and there's
partner.
one other huge potential con, which is if you've only been sober for a year or something and your big thing was alcohol and they got wine all over the house. Like there's that. For
Mhm.
me, that wouldn't be a concern. I could care
Yeah.
less about alcohol. But
Yeah.
maybe there was a time when that would have been challenging, you know. Also, you know what would be
Mm-hmm.
interesting? I've never kissed anyone that tasted like they'd been drinking when I wasn't. I don't know if that would be weird. Wait, have you? Do you ever kiss your chick
I
and she's been
oh
drinking?
yeah.
Is it
Oh
weird?
yeah. I've kissed, yeah, kissed drinking, weed. Um, so this is, I'll talk on that one. That's another con. One, are you dating a normie because one day
Oh yeah.
I could tell them I don't have a problem. 99% of the time, they're gonna be
Okay.
like, oh, okay, because they don't get it.
Totally.
They really don't get it. You can manipulate them so easy. I'll tell you that. That's so easy. So you got to be careful with. That's the
Totally.
con. You can manipulate them and let you
Yeah.
party. Two, if you're dating a normie, probably shouldn't date a normie that
Mm,
parties. That's the thing. I was one of my boundaries was the normies. I'm like, do you drink a lot? Do you like? They're like, no, I don't like to
okay.
drink, but they don't have a problem. I can deal
Okay.
with that. So that's another thing to be careful of. If
Interesting.
you're going to clubs
Yeah.
with them, because you want to show up for your partner, you want to go to their birthdays, or I can never date someone who parties, even if they don't have a problem. But if
Yeah.
they party, I'm gonna fucking be doing blow coke. I'm gonna go do cocaine. I'm gonna get crazy. So the other con is, can you handle the lifestyle if they party? Be careful. Choose a normie who doesn't party.
Totally.
See, there's different types of
Yeah.
normies. So yeah, you got to be careful with that. Now, my partner will have a sip of beer maybe once a month, maybe a sip. She's been drunk one time on her third date, right? And she didn't mean to. It wasn't her fault. I had reservations at a place and I got free alcohol from it. And I'm like, I don't drink. You can have it. So again, it
Right.
was innocent. So she's like, okay, but it was a lot. I'm the type of person, if you're too buzzed, it's disgusting. I don't want to
Yeah.
kiss you. I don't want to hug you. I don't want nothing. So, but if they have one beer, the taste doesn't trigger
Okay.
me. The buzz triggers me. But some people, the taste does
Right.
trigger them. So you have to figure out, is it the taste or is it the buzz? So that's the thing too. A lot of people I see date normies at party. And I go, that's
Yeah.
not
How
a
are you
good
doing that?
idea because they
Right.
Party. I can barely handle going to a concert with
Yeah.
people that party. I'm like, dude, I'm leaving. But if it's your partner, you don't want to be a dick or be the
Right.
party pooper and be like, oh, can we leave?
Yeah.
Can we leave? So date someone who's like okay with like, yeah, we'll go for an hour. We don't need to drink. And then when you want to leave,
Totally.
I'm cool. So choosing a normie, it's you have to be so picky. Like, do they party? Do they want to understand addiction to support you? Are they going to meet you where you're at and give you grace to work through maybe things that you should have known when you were like in middle school or high school, but you
Yeah.
don't because you're an adult child? Are they okay with that? So that's what I'm saying. There's pros and cons. I think dating, again, is different for everybody.
Yeah. Well, dude, this was great. I think people are going to enjoy this conversation. And we talked for like almost fucking 2 hours, which I should have known would happen. That was not my intention. My intention actually was to make this like an hour long, like educational episode, you know?
And I never got to share my funny stories.
Do you still want
dating.
to?
I mean, it's
no,
so long.
let's save it for the next one. Because what I want to hear too is, after you guys listen, any questions or anything, start racking them up and we'll do another episode where we can talk about this a little bit further, and then maybe you share your stories as well.
Yeah, because I think there's things where I can share my stories. Cause I got some funny dating stories. Like funny. I've been to boat jail, like tons of funny stuff. I got set up in Mexico. That's a whole another story. But I think a good topic too next time. Trauma love language. People know about the love languages.
Oh, okay.
Right. But people don't talk about the trauma love languages. How do you build a healthy relationship when you come from a traumatic background? Because there's 5 different languages in that people have to talk about how to work through it to feel safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's key to help people kind of, because you're going to need somebody to meet you where you're at, because it's almost like you have to like rewire your brain how to be in one.
Okay.
That'd
be great. Let's
let's
schedule that for in a few months or something. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. And thank you for being flexible. I know I had to reschedule and I really, really appreciate it. I'm glad we got to connect again.